Good morning all. I've been asked to make a video tutorial about setting up the PMDG 747 version 3 for a flight. Today we're going to fly from Dublin, EIDW, to Cardiff, which is the British Airways service depot, if you like, with British Airways. I believe it's Civex, the aircraft, and I'm going to show you how to set up the flight. I'm going to show you the settings I've got in the PMDG settings. We're set up for a long turnaround flight. Let's go to the options, into simulation. I advise you to, I've turned off, disabled all the ground roll, shaking, etc., because I'm using EZdok version 2. And I also advise you to use auto tanking. You can use the other method, but it makes things a lot easier, especially on a long flight. Keep switching the tanks. You can learn how to do that and then do it manually yourself at a later date, so that's not a problem. What are the other settings? I think they might be in. Oh yeah, the couple of things to mention. I would advise you set a switch for toga, and I would also advise that you set a switch for disengage autopilot. You'd be surprised how much easier that makes things, especially when you're landing or you're about to land and you want to switch out of autopilot to take over manually. So those two things I would recommend. Where are we now? Can't remember. Right, the call outs, pilot call out, if I can find it. I don't think it's in that one. Let's try displays. There we go. Pilot calls out VR, rotate, and pilot calls out positive rate, gear up. If you're not using, which obviously we aren't at the moment, FS to crew, then you're going to want an indication of when to pull back on the stick and when to put the gear up. And if the co-pilot calls out VR and positive rate, then you'll know exactly what you should do when you should do it. Right, so that's how I've got the Queen set up at the moment. Right, I'm going to take you through, we're going to be using ProATC as our ATC backup, so there are some things that are peculiar to ProATC that won't work any other way, and one of those is that it exports the flight plan into, it actually exports the flight plan into the 747. So we're going to be flying from Dublin to Cardiff. Let's see if I can show you what I've done to, because there's no 747 actually in ProATC at the moment. I've had to do a workaround which involves using the 777 and just find the flight plans, Lockheed Martin, PMDG flight plans, and use the 747 in the 777 spot, and that will work, and it has, well, it's been working for me with no problems at all. Right, so that's that. Right, so let's get started. I'll take you through the setup as I do it. This is not necessarily the right way. Morning, David. This is not necessarily the right way, but it's the way I do it, so you can use it or not, it's up to you. Okay, first things first, we're going to start the ATC. And there you'll see the little box that pops up when you start the when you click fly now. Get rid of the default flight plans and just make sure the PMDG 777 box is ticked. Click OK. When you click OK, if you're using AS16 for the weather, you will automatically hear the ATC come alive, which we should do directly I click this button.
Echo, India, Delta, Whiskey, airport information,
like
Hotel 0930, Zulu, weather, wind 303, at 12, visibility 10, sky condition 1,500, scatter 2,000.
So that you're not drowned out, I'm going to switch over to
2.7, QNH 10.
That's better. Now I'll switch to the moving map, because in ProATC the moving map gives you lots of very valuable information, not least the runways that you're going to be using, the SIDs, any transitions, obviously the stars that you're going to be expecting, not necessarily the ones that you'll get, but the star that you should be expecting, and the runway, and obviously it allows you to navigate around the airport because you can zoom in, and once you've been given the your clearance, you will actually see which runway you're going to be using, so you'll be able to navigate to that particular runway. There's us on gate C400, just there. Right, let's get started. Okay, first things first, up to the top panel, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is turning on the navigation system. So we click that, left, centre and right to navigation. We arm the emergency lights, and I switch on the service intercom. Not that that makes any difference. Now for the moment that's enough on this panel. So then we come down to the main panel and we ask for clearance. Just extend this a bit so we don't have to keep changing pages.
Clear delivery, Speedbird 761S, parking position, Terminal 1 Gate Charlie 400 with the ATC request clearance.
Speedbird 761S, runway 28, cleared to Echo Golden Foxtrot Foxtrot via Alpha Bravo India Delta 1 Bravo Interspite. Climb to flight level 60, expect flight level 270 within 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency is 130.905, squawk 5752, QNH 1018.
Cleared by Alpha Bravo India Delta 1 Bravo, climbing to flight level 60, expect flight level 270 within 10 minutes after departure. Departure frequency 130.905, squawk 5752, Speedbird 761S.
Speedbird 761S, read that correct. Contact ground on 121.8.
Roger, 121.8, Speedbird 761S.
Hi King, how you doing? Right, as I said, this left side of ProATC gets populated with with a lot of valuable information, and starting from the top we've got our call sign, we've got our squawk code, which I will enter shortly, because if you don't he keeps bugging you for it. We've got our initial altitude to set, which is flight level 6000, the frequency that is now set, which is 12180, and our cruising altitude, which is going to be flight level 270. Moving down we've got the departure, which is Dublin International Airport, and the ICAO code, which is EIDW, our SID, which is ABID 1B, our takeoff runway, which is 28, and if we move over to the map you'll now see that the runway direction is highlighted, and that's the runway we're going to be used to take off. And as you can see, the other aircraft are also using that runway. And then if we move down to our destination, we've got Cardiff, the ICAO code, which is EGFF, an alternate should we need one, which is EGDM, and then the expected star, the expected approach, which is ILS Zulu 30, the runway, and the approach transition, which is CDF1. Right, now we can start to put that into the FMC, which is the next step on the road.
761F, squawk 5752.
Squawk 5752.
There he goes, asking for the... So 5752. Make sure that's switched to transponder, and click the button in the middle, which will transmit that signal. Not that it always works, because he keeps asking me for a while. Okay, the next thing to do is, while we're down here, turn on the auto seat belts and switch the auto brakes to RTO, so we don't forget to do that later. Right, for now that's that panel done. Now we're going to move to the FMC. The first thing we're going to do is sort the fuel out. So I'm not going to mess about with exact, I'm just going to set it for short range. That should do us from Ireland to Cardiff. There will be more ground connections and that I'll talk to you about when the time's due shortly. Right, into the FMC. You can see that the IRS position now is the aircraft's aligned, so it's asking us to input the IRS position. So we'll do that momentarily. So the first place we want to go is position. So we type in EIDW, which is the ICAO code for where we are, Now I'm not sure if this will take. We'll try putting the gate in, but for some reason it doesn't always take it.
Squawk 5752, Speedbird 761S.
No, not in the database. Let's try 400C. Wow, I'm surprised. I didn't expect that. Right. On this, you have to click twice, whereas on the 737, it's on the next page. On the 747, you have to click twice. It's 2 pages on. So we click the left-hand button, which then puts that into the pasteboard. Click back twice, and we're going to click. And you'll notice that the CDU comes alive once we've done that. Okay, before we go to route, I'm going to go to the arrivals and departures page. No, I'm not. First things first. Next page to go to is the route page, which is where we're going to get our flight plan from. So EIDW is our origin. Now we're going to send a request, and if all works well with ProATC, the request will send and you'll get a reply shortly with your route. Once the route appears, click load. Now once the route's loaded, you'll see the destination populated. In this case it's EGFF, which is Cardiff. You'll see the route there, EIDW, EGFF, and the word activate. At this point you can put the flight number in, which in our case is BAW 761S. The S stands for service, in case you were wondering. We'll activate that. Okay, ignore the wind data uplink, etc. for now. We will go back to that shortly. The flight number uplink, I'm not sure what that does at this moment in time, but if someone does know what it does, please let me know. Okay. Right, on to the performance calculation page. If you get lost at any point, just click index and it's all there. So we want the perf page, which is there. Now on some aircraft you'll find that the gross and zero fuel weights are pre-calculated, and all you need to do is click on the gross weight and everything comes alive. In some other liveries with the PMDG, this isn't so. So what you need to do is go to the other FMC, go to menu, FS Actions and Payload. Now we've already loaded our fuel, so we know exactly what our zero fuel weight is going to be, and in this case it's 223.6. so in this box we'll put 223.6, and you now notice that gross weight is also populated. Our reserves will be 4, and the cost index, I've actually got a cost index page here which you can download for yourselves from Toga. Yes, that's the same people that make ENVTEX. And we're looking for British Airways. British Airways. 747-400, and our cruise cost index is 90. So we'll put 90 into the cost index box. Now all we need is our cruise altitude, and because it's not a very long way, obviously we're not going to go too high. It's 27,000 feet, or flight level 270. Just a quick word about the step size. If you're flying east, which I believe is odd numbers, let me double check that before I put my foot in my mouth. Yes, if you're flying east, which is odd numbers flight level wise, use the ICAO step size. If you're flying west using even numbers, then use 2000 in place of the ICAO numbers. I'm not sure why. That was what I was advised to do, and it appears to work perfectly. I'll try and find out why that's the case in a later video. Okay, so that's the perf page filled in. We move on to thrust limit. I always use 45. I've still not got to understand what the relevance of this figure is. I know we're using it to decelerate or to derate the engines when we take off, but what that figure and whether it should be higher, lower, whatever, I'm still not sure of that. So hands up if anyone wants to put an explanation forward, that please do so. But I use 45 and it always works for me. So right, our flap setting is going to be 10.
Ground Shamrock 651, ready to taxi.
Airlink 651. Taxi via Bravo 4 Alpha Lima.
And the first thing we need to do is put our departure runway in, which in this case,
Bravo 4 Alpha Lima, India November Kilo 2 Alpha Tango 1, 2K Lima 307, Shamrock 651.
I wish they'd have turned ATC off now, but never mind. Right, takeoff runway is 28, and our SID is ABID 1B. So 28 and Alpha Bravo India Delta 1 Bravo is our SID. We execute that. Now I'll put the arrival in as well, being as it's not that far and it shouldn't change, to be honest. So in this case it's can't see that on there. Right, ILSZ 30. Charlie Delta Foxtrot 1 Alpha is our star, and our transition is Charlie Delta Foxtrot 1 for the transition. Right, go back to initiate, and our takeoff ref. You'll notice that the speeds to takeoff are now inserted, V1, VR, V2. What we need now is the trim, so we go back to the second FMC, back to menu, back to payload, and then we look for the takeoff centre of gravity, which is 21.4. So I'm going to enter 22 into this spot, and you'll notice that the trim will be calculated automatically. That's all you have to do for the trim. So back to the legs page, put that back, then we highlight each takeoff speed, and that activates. Now you'll see that the route is live. Right, as you can see outside it's raining, so we'll change the conditions to wet. The takeoff speeds have been deleted, so just put them back. That's it. So our takeoff V2 speed is 157, which we'll set on the speed dial. We've been given an initial altitude of 6,000, so we'll set that as well. Right, we can put that back. Now I'm going to set the runway heading. And press B on my keyboard to set the barometer, which stands at 1018 1018. And if I cross check that with ProATC, which is checking the weather as well, you'll see that the QNH is 1018, which is the same. I'll talk about the other end when we get on the approach, so talk about QNH then. Right, let me draw your attention to these the orange warnings here. Now as we move closer to start up, these lights will actually go out, and I'll show you that as we move forward. So we've set up the FMC, the route's installed. We switch on the flight director, left side, my side first, and then the co-pilot. And then in the 747 we also light up the VNAV and LNAV, so that that's ready to rock and roll directly we've reached the relevant altitude. Now, because there's no FS to crew co-pilot telling us what to do, what he wants to do, etc, etc, we're free to start our takeoff procedure pretty much straight away. So the next step for us is to turn all the fuel. Now some of these aren't lit up. I turn all of them on. Now we're not carrying a lot of fuel today, so only the main tanks are relevant. If you were running a full load, then obviously let's just check the so if we look at we've got 13.6 on the wing tanks, each wing tank, and we've got 13.7 in the main tanks. So what you need to do is switch the fuel crossfeed to off. So each of those tanks will draw independently. So each engine will be drawing. So for engine 1 is drawing on the left wing tank, engine 2 is drawing on the main tank, engine 3 is drawing on the main tank, and engine 4 is drawing on the right wing tank. That's how you want to set it up. Right, so APU, once the fuel pumps are on, we start the APU, and we come down here and we watch it start up. So stat, watch the EGT temperature rise, M1, M2. Once M1 reaches 100, you know that you're free to move up and switch to APU power. Loading passengers would start whilst we were inputting our route, pretty much. Yeah, so directly you've got clearance, you've sorted out the cockpit, the basics, switched all the electrics on. Once you start inputting the route into the FMC, then you can start loading your passengers. That's pretty accurate, I think. Okay, so now if we check M1, we've got 100%. So now we'll go up to the top and we notice that the APU, generator 1 and generator 2 are now available. So we switch to those and you'll notice that the external power is automatically de-lived, so we've not got to worry straight away about turning that off. Right, so the next thing we want to do before start is to turn on the beacon. This will alert the ground crew that we're going to be starting engines shortly. We're going to turn the hydraulic pumps to 1 to auto, 2 and 3 to auto, wait for the fault signs to go out, and we'll be turning number 4 to auxiliary. Do not turn the packs on until after engine start. Okay, that's about right. So auto start is always on, you never have to worry about that, that stays on. The APU's running, so we've got power. So we come back down.
Ground Airlink 563, request taxi. Airlink 563, taxi via Bravo 4, Alpha Lima, India November, Kilo 2, Gate Charlie 305. Via Bravo 4, Alpha Lima, India November, Kilo 2, Gate Charlie 305, Airlink 563.
Now, what I should have mentioned earlier is one of your pre-flight jobs would be to put the brakes on. I always forget that, but there you go. I always remember, however, when I get to this point, because the next step is going to be going to the menu, to FS Actions. We're going to close the doors. And we're going to arm the doors. And we're also, at this point, because we're now running on the APU, we're going to remove the ground power. So if I set wheel chocks to removed, you'll see that everything else is disconnected. Now if we go outside for a moment, we'll watch the little guy come up with his little tractor and tow the ground power unit away. Here he comes. Okay, the dual connections are gone. And away he goes. Right, now we're free to ask for start-up and pushback.
Ground Speedbird 761S, request start-up and pushback.
Speedbird 761S, start-up and pushback approved.
Approved. Speedbird 761S.
Okay, we've got approval for startup and pushback, and you notice now that there are only 5 orange lights showing, and one of those is TCAS, which I'll switch to now. So that's TA only, which is the ground awareness. So now we've got 4 orange lights showing, and these will go out as we start each engine. So now I'm going to ask for pushback, and if we go back to the map, let's determine which way we want to be facing. So I think in this instance a straight back pushback will be in order. So there's, let's switch that off a minute. There's the runway we're aiming for. So there's us, so we want to come down here and down to this runway E1. So it's AT1, link 2, then we got Y, which leads us on to E1, and then runway threshold. So a straight back pushback, I think. Okay, number 3 option, straight pushback. Do we want to start the engines before? No, we'll start them as we're going. At this point, if you wish, don't forget to switch to engines on the lower ICAS. We can do a recall as well, just to make sure we've not forgotten anything, and that's okay. So the only orange lights we've got are the engine lights at the moment.
Locking gear.
Well, once we're airborne, I'm not going to be talking too much. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask at that point. There won't be so much to describe until we get closer to our destination. Just sit back and enjoy the ride.
Departure check completed, Captain. Bypass pin inserted. And release parking brakes, sir. Commencing the push, Captain. Start engines at your discretion.
All engines clear. Start at will.
Okay, now I'm going to be starting engines 3 and 4 first. It's up to you. I normally start them one at a time, but you can start them in pairs. So we'll start 3 and then number 4. So number 3 up to the top, number 4 you pull out, you pull the and then turn on the fuel from cut off to run. And if we look at the bottom ICAS, we notice that the both engines are running up okay. N3's rising. Light should go out when it reaches approximately 55%. We'll check that. So number 3 will be going out first. There it goes. Number 4 will follow shortly after.
And set parking brakes, please.
Also notice that as the engines come online, that the lights go off on this side depending on which side you started. So we've started the two right, the starboard engines, so the lights for that area have gone out. Now we'll start the port engines and you'll notice that the lights will go out that side as well. So we start number 2 first.
Unlocking gear.
And then number 1.
Captain, the tow truck is disconnected and the bypass pin is removed.
And again, if we check the ICAS, the lower ICAS, we notice that the N3 is rising okay on both engines. Now we've got an orange light hydraulic pressure in number 4, which if you remember we set that to auxiliary We'll switch that once the engines are started and stabilised.
Ground Ryanair 7035 is clear of the runway. Request taxi to parking. Ryanair 7035. Taxi via Bravo 4 Alpha Lima India November.
Okay, we'll wait till the engine lights, starter lights have gone out before we do anything else. We know then that the engines are running stably. Watch these lights go out as the engines start. The APU generator, as you notice, has automatically been taken offline as the engines have started. Right, after start procedure, number 4 hydraulic pump, we turn to auto to match the others. We turn on the packs to normal. We turn off the APU. We turn on our taxi lights, and we just check to make sure that there are no lights illuminated. Very similar to the 777. Okay, everything looks good. You now notice that all the orange lights have gone out on the upper ICAS. We'll do a recall just to check that everything's okay, which it is. We set the flaps to 10. While we're doing that, don't forget to set the continuous, the ignition to continuous for takeoff. The temperature's below 10 degrees, so we're also going to start the engine anti-ice. Wing anti-ice is not necessary in this instance. Okay, everything's running, everything's stable. Continuous ignition, parking brakes set, doors are locked and closed and armed. Auto brakes to RTO. I'm now going to switch to, and we'll just do a flight controls check. Full left, full right, centre, full up, full down, centre, rudder, full left, full right, centre. And while we're here, let's check the speed brakes as well, the spoilers, they're all working okay. So our hydraulics are running okay. I'm now going to switch to gear page on the lower ICAS. So while we taxi, we can check our temperatures in our brakes, and if it gets too high, you're going to get a puncture. So the key there is don't taxi too fast. Right, King, you asked me how we get to the runway. We use the ProATC map. Let me enlarge that for you. There we are with a white aircraft. We've just pushed straight back. So we're going to make a right turn along AT1, link 2, Yankee link 2, down to Yankee, onto E1, and there's the runway threshold, the runway we're going to be using, which is 28. So what I'll do, I'll leave that, if I can. I won't be able to leave it there all the time, but you'll get the gist of what we're doing. Right, we've got one orange light left. Let's just talk about that for a minute. And the reason we've got that is quite simply because it's set to auto. We've oh, actually we should be okay. This cross feed's in the right position. We've got the fuel weights are balanced, so that's not going to be a problem. So we'll get rid of that. Switch to gear. Right, now we're going to ask for taxi to runway. Just do a quick run through. Flaps 10. Everything's set. Request taxi to runway.
761S, request taxi.
Pittsburgh 761S. Taxi via Alpha Tango 1, Yankee Echo 1 to runway 28.
Via Alpha Tango 1, Yankee Echo 1 to runway 28. Speedbird 761S.
Yes, I'm afraid it is the only way you can find your way to the runway. If you want an active map, then there are other maps out there that I believe you can use. EFAS does a really nice map that gives you live position on it, so you can trace your way there. That's you can download that for free, I believe. Okay, taxi in. Make sure that you keep your speeds low. You might need a little bit of oomph to get away initially, but make sure you pull the speed back as soon as you can. There's no set throttle setting for speed, you're just going to have to judge it yourself. Judicious use of the brakes will keep your tyres cool. Okay, if we follow the map, we're on AT1, which is April 1, heading to link 2. There's link 2. Come down to Yankee when we see the sign for that. We're coming up now, it's clearly marked the threshold of the runway. So this is not marked actually on the
Pittsburgh 761S. Contact hour on 118.6.
118.6. Speedbird 761S.
Okay, I took a bit of a shortcut there. I shouldn't have done that really, but be honest, it's only a sim. So we're now positioned on runway 28. Better double check that. There you go. Runway 28. I'm about to ask for takeoff permission. So let's have a double check. Turn our lights on. Strobes on. Make sure everything's no light showing. We'll do a recall just in case. Yeah, X-feed configuration, we know that. Let's switch to engines on the lower ICAS. Make sure the headings align with the runway, and we're ready to go. Flaps are set to 10. Anti-ice is on. continuous ignition is on. Okay, speed to about 50%, hit toga and push the throttles forward, and away we go. It's a big aircraft, so speed appears to build slowly, but in actual fact we're already doing 90 miles an hour.
Speedbird 761S. Abort takeoff, I repeat, abort takeoff.
Aborting takeoff, Speedbird 761S.
Rotate. Speedbird 761S. Abort takeoff, I repeat, abort takeoff.
Aborting takeoff, Speedbird 761S.
Speedbird 761S. Abort takeoff, I repeat, abort takeoff.
Aborting takeoff, Speedbird 761S.
Now the reason we're getting that is because I never asked for takeoff permission.
Tower, Speedbird 761S. Hold it short, runway 28. Roger, Speedbird 761S. Wind you past 1,100 for flight level 60.
Speedbird 761S. We have a contact, continue. Alpha Bravo, India Delta 1 Bravo, departure climb, maintain flight level 60. Reduce speed to 20.
Via the Alpha Bravo, India Delta 1 Bravo, departure, climb into flight level 60. Slowing down to 250, Speedbird 761S.
You obviously wouldn't have got away with that in the real world, but you have to remind yourself this is just a simulator. Okay, flaps 5, flaps 1.
Flight level 160, Speedbird 761S.
Flaps up. Right, he's given us permission to climb to 16,000, which we'll do momentarily. Once the airspeed stabilised, then we're right, at this point you do the after takeoff checklist. Flaps up, gear up, no lights. Right, now we'll push up to 16,000. Yeah, you're right, Robert, they're going to put me in timeout for that. I'm getting too excited in my old age. Okay, we can follow the flight on the map if you wish. It's not very long. Just a quick hop across the Irish Sea to the west coast of Wales, across Wales down to the bottom corner where we're going to land at Cardiff Airport. So enjoy the view for now. Right, after takeoff checklist, we also want to turn off continuous ignition and turn off the engine anti-ice. Don't forget to do that. Once we hit 10,000, we'll turn off the lights. You'll hear a helpful ding from the seatbelt on auto, which should remind you to turn off the lights. There we go, there's the ding. Lights off. Okay, now we've not got that long I'm not even sure. We're not going to have very long at cruising altitude at all, so once we hit cruising altitude I'll start setting up for approach, descent and approach. What do you mean by real 747 flight? I'm not quite with you on that. This is a simulator after all. The steering tiller works alongside with the rudder, so below a certain speed I believe the tiller operates. Once you start to accelerate down the runway it's locked out. Okay, we've been given instructions to climb to 27, which is our cruise altitude for this flight. We've got a disco in the flight plan, which I shall remove momentarily. Oh, I see what you mean. Now this is just a short demo flight. Let's imagine that there was a problem with one of the generators that forced an emergency landing into Dublin, and once the engineers give permission for the plane to fly on, they're going to take it to Cardiff to the service depot to be swapped out for a new generator. How's that sound? I normally fly with the fuel page open on the lower ICAS, just to keep an eye on the way the fuel's going, especially if you're on a long haul and you're waiting to switch to the wing tanks directly. The centre fuel tanks become equal. Okay, our top of climb's coming up. and we haven't got very long at all until we're going to start our descent, so I'll get straight into the descent. Okay, in it ref. Approach page, we're going to set flaps 30 and a 150 knot landing speed. VNav, we'll want our that's the point. I never set the transition altitude for takeoff, which in Dublin's case should have been 5,000 feet. Too late now, unfortunately, but never mind. Okay, we will go to forecast page, where we're going to change the transition altitude to 070. We'll ask for a descent forecast for the wind. Better get the route data for the winds en route. Yep, and that will give us our descent forecast as well, hopefully. Load. And there's our descent winds. Pretty reasonable. Nothing too outrageous. Okay, we've got 106 miles to our next waypoint, and after that we've got we'll start looking for descent to descend. Okay, so we've got our approach references logged in, 30 degrees flat, 150 knots. That now shows up on the left hand ICAS reference 30, 150. If we go back to the FMC and go to nav and radio, we need to highlight the ILS. That will then activate that. And we just cross-check that with the ILS setting, which is 110.70, 110.7.
118.77, Speedbird 761S.
So that's set.
Speedbird 761S, winding at flight level 270.
Now if we look at the left-hand ICAS again, you'll see that the ILS is now set in the top left. Pop down to the auto brakes and we'll set them for 2. And that's it, we're pretty much set up now for our landing into Cardiff. Might be advisable to go and check the airport out, which we'll do now. So there we go. So that's our there's our waypoint, STU, Sierra Tango Uniform 30. Our top of descent is can ask us now.
Heading 165, descend to flight level 240.
Right turn to heading 165, descending to flight level 240, Speedbird
just in time. Okay, now we're going to be descending without the FMC's permission, so to speak. So we need to go to VNAV, page 2 or 3, and click descend now. That puts us in an off path descent mode, and it will stop the warnings coming up here that we're descending without permission.
Turn right, heading 210, descend to flight level 170.
Right turn, heading 210, descending to flight level 170, speed bird 761S.
Now, for some reason, the flight path that we've been given differs from the one in ProATC. This happens now and again. Just work with it. It's no big deal. We will end up eventually at the same place.
Speedbird 761S. Continue climb level, turn left, heading 115.
Climb level left turn, heading 115. Speedbird 761S.
Let's play along with ATC and we'll use their directions. So he wants us to turn left to 115, which is what we're going to do. Okay, they've asked us to descend to flight level 170. Now, once you set your runway, the ILS is preset. You don't need to set it. Only on very rare occasions when the ILS in my case ProATC and the ILS on the runway doesn't match. Because I use HERV saws and settle my runways within P3D to the current headings, there should never be any discrepancies now. Aviation King, I don't think you can separate the tiller and rudder. They're connected. Unlike the A320 from Flight Sim Labs, which you can set the tiller up separately. On the PMDG, to be honest, it's such a small detail that it's not even worth worrying about. For the amount of time you spend taxiing, don't even worry about it. And in fact, on the real aircraft, I'm not sure that tiller and the rudder are separate anyway. Most large airliners lock the rudder when you're on takeoff roll to stop you veering left or right. Obviously, there's a certain amount of play there to allow for the wind to, if the wind's you've got a crosswind on takeoff. But you can check that out on Google. I'm not 100% sure on that. Okay, we're now totally relying on ProATC for our directions because I'm now completely off path as regards the flight plan. When you're running in VNAV, this is worth mentioning, you use the altitude knob push to set your altitude. If you're flying in flight level change, Fletch, then you obviously just use that to dial down the altitude and it follows automatically. Okay, we're rapidly approaching Cardiff now, as you can see.
Approach, Speedbird 761S, with you passing flight level 200 for flight level 110.
Speedbird 761S, continue IoT Charlie Delta Foxtrot 1 Bravo route, expect ILS Zulu approach runway 30, transition Charlie Delta Foxtrot 1.
Via the arrival, expect ILS Zulu approach, runway 30, transition Charlie Delta Foxtrot 1, Speedbird 761S. 935, leave Lambourne on 275 or a little bit to the left is okay.
It's the cost index page is from Toga, so if you go to their website, you'll find the cost index download. Toga projects, same people that make ENVTEX.
Approach, good afternoon, Speedbird 715 Quebec, 475, information X-ray, flying up towards Biggin.
Now for some reason this flight plan differs completely, and yet it was the one offered by ProATC, so I can only assume that there are two flight plans residing in the folder and that I got the wrong one basically. Right, we now want to set heading 85. The good thing about the 747 is it slows down really well, and unlike the 737, which is a nightmare to get it slowed down in time. Okay, there's BCN, which is the route that ProATC are following. There. So we should be getting a turn to the right shortly. I'm now going to start reducing our speed using flight level change. Bring that down to 240.
Rhino 221 heading to London 13092. Bye now. 109, arrive. 219 Lima, descent to London 9 to Immersion and navigation Providence. Navigation Providence and the clear, that would be 219 Lima. 219 Lima, clear level flight level 9 today. 219 Lima.
Actually, we'd probably been better off following the flight plan that was in the FMC, because we're going to have to lose some height, quite a lot of height in a short period of time now. Okay, speed comes down, we'll bring that down to 2 and 215.
Uniform, descend altitude 6,000 feet, secure nation 1019 about about 6,000 feet, nation 1019, uniform.
Okay, now we're going to use vertical speed for a little while to increase our descent. Push that up to 220 because I'm not going to put the flaps out just yet.
Right turn, 230.
330.
Shuttle 7 Papa descending flight level 150. Shuttle 7 Papa, hello, maintain flight level 150, 250 knots please. 250 knots, Shuttle 7 Papa. British 437, climb flight level 140, turn right heading 040 degrees. Climb level 140 and head 040, British 437.
I presume this is going to take us over the airport, and then we'll do a left turn and pick up the ILS. That does appear to be the... so here we are. We're going to overfly the airport and then turn left and pick up the ILS. I would imagine that's the plan. Our final approach fix for this is 2,200 feet. Thanks, Robert. Good luck. Speak to you later. I suppose it would be an idea to check the weather at Cardiff, see what we can expect.
19 Lima, passing flight level 184, descending flight level 150, heading at 170. 19 Lima, hello, please continue on the heading.
It's quite low cloud at Cardiff, so we're going to expect some dodgy visibility down there. We'll see how the visibility is and then decide on the landing, whether it will be a ILS or a manual. There we go, there's your ding to indicate that it's time to turn the lights on.
72, maintain 100, continue on the heading left, close to 220 knots. Can we make that about 230? Okay, speed 230.
Keeper 761, descend to 3,000. QNH 1017.
Descend to 3,000, speedbird 761S.
Okay, we've now been given permission to descend to 3,000. We're now free to switch to from standard to the barometer setting, which we'll do now. Make sure you press B to give you the accurate setting that you need. It's only it's actually reading 1018 to 1017, which doesn't make that much difference. Let's cross-check that barometer reading in 1017. Yeah, so always go with the AS60 reading.
Flight level 80. Good rate of descent to flight level 80, EG402.
Okay, well they should be asking us to turn left shortly. Final approach is out over the Severn estuary, so we should be turning left shortly to pick that up.
Heading 70 for 4,000, 1022 millibars, American 46. Midland 1 X-ray Fox, descend flight level 80. Descend level 80, Midland 1 X-ray Fox. Repeat 2598, continue left onto heading of 270. Continue left and heading 270, Olympic 2598, maintaining level 80. Okay.
761, turn left heading 085.
Left turn heading 10.
There we go. Left turn 085.
761, keep to 160, descend to 2200, QNH 1017, clear, ILS Zulu, approach runway 30.
Final approach speed, descend into 2200, clear, ILS Zulu, approach, runway 30.
Okay, we can now start deploying flaps. So we'll go flaps 1. Bring the speed down to match the flap setting.
Stephen 817, maintain 4,000 feet, establish on the localizer, but just check in now with radar 1204. Roger, 1204, Stephen 817.
That heading's brought us on an intercept path for the ILS. Down to 2,200, which is our final approach fix height.
Keeper 761, turn left heading 040.
Left turn heading 040, Speedbird 761S.
Okay, flaps 5.
Now 507, descent landable 90, speed 210. 90, speed 210, 507.
Hit the lock button. We'll pick up the ILS as we cross the flaps 10.
One 2127 with the stick, get it out to the right. Right 160. Cheers on. At 165 to it, at 176.
See the runway shortly. Cabin's ready.
Alpha 243, the British Airways Concorde, come down your left hand side after Concorde departs, line up 279. Tower, Speedbird 761S, on final, runway 30.
And we've picked up the
Clear to land runway 30.
lock.
Slow to final approach speed. QNH 1017.
Clear to land runway 30. Final approach speed.
Now when you
Speedbird
press approach,
761S.
it automatically arms all 3 autopilots. So you haven't got to press those. Press and approach arms them automatically. Okay, gear down.
November 2 Foxtrot Papa Clear, takeoff 279, wind calm.
Flaps 20. There's the runway in sight. Flaps 25. And
Fox 244, contact London 118.8.
flaps 30. Now I'm not adding 5 knots to our landing speed, simply because we've got a 14 knot headwind that we're flying into. We're now on the glide slope. Make sure you arm continuous ignition and check the temperatures above 10 degrees, so we don't need to put on engine anti-ice. We're on the glide path, everything's looking good. And at this point, if we wish, we can disarm the autopilot and fly her in manually.
Takeoff for the departing Virgin Express 737 engine 279.
Slightly above the glide path. I will rectify that. I'm flying in on auto throttle, you'll notice.
1,000.
There's a bit of a crosswind which has blown us off course slightly.
Shuttle 3 Southwest, clear to land 279.
Arm the speed brake. Bit of a sloppy landing. There you go. Oh. Oh, we got to go around. How about that?
Clear and emission approach, Speedbird 761S.
Speedbird 761S. Confirm missed approach. Maintain present heading, climb to 3000. Contact approach on 119.15.
Maintain present heading, climb into 3000, 119.15. Speedbird 761S. Olympic 269, range 23 miles on 279. Call sign only to radar 1204. Goodbye. Visual approach, take a breath. Approach. Speedbird 761S, with you at 3,200.
Speedbird 761S, climb to 3,000. Expect vector to ILS Zulu approach runway 30.
Climb into 3,000, expect vectors for ILS Zulu approach, runway 30. Speedbird 761S.
Speedbird 761S, turn to heading 290, climb to 3,000.
Head in 135. Climb and maintain 3,000. Speedbird 761S. Left turn heading 135, Speedbird 761S.
Speedbird 761S, turn left heading 135, descend to 3,000.
Left turn heading 125, descend into 3,000, Speedbird 761S.
Speedbird 761S, turn left heading 125.
Left turn heading 125, Speedbird 761S.
Runway 906 direct to Barclay now.
To Barclay, runway 906.
And easy 402, descend altitude 5,000 feet, QNH 1025. Descend altitude 5,000 feet, QNH 1025, easy 402.
descending to 3000, speedbird 761S.
Yeah, when you're taxiing, it's best to have some sort of map if possible, or at least have charts of the runway so that you know of the airport, so you know where the runway is for a start. If you're not using something like ProATC or one of the other maps, then there's no way you're going to know. Without charts, you're lost, completely lost.
Turn heading 120, speedbird 761S.
Okay, we can start deploying the flaps again now. Get ready for the second go at the runway.
Seabird 12 November, turn left heading 33 today. Left at 330, Seabird 12 November. Ryanair 408, do you want to come back and see? Sorry, Ryanair 408, yes, come back to 250 knots, it's not already, and descend, flight double 8 today. Descend flight level 80, we're at 250 knots, Ryanair 408.
Laps 5. I use ENVTEX textures together with ASCA, and I use the P3D Tweak Assistant with the preset called THOPAT.
Line 408, contact NVidia radar 12062, goodbye. 12062, Ryanair 408, bye now. Chaseplane 914 down to descend, flight level 110. Flight level 110, 914 down.
Okay, it's taken us, currently taken us towards a waypoint that it's set, and then it's going to turn us back in towards the ILS there, as you can see.
Hello, it's Steven 59 Lima Lima, 752 Echo, we're just passing 133, about to take a whole land, will be level 120 by the end of the outbound terminal. final approach speed, left turn to heading 340, descending to 2,200, cleared ILS.
Okay, we now got a second bite of the cherry.
Speed bird 761S.
Good afternoon, London Control, ED402 with you, flight level 130. ED402, hello, flying heading please at 350 degrees, no speed restrictions, expect action straight and approach. Radar heading 350 degrees, flight level 130, no speed restrictions, ED402.
Speedbird 761, descend to 2,200.
Descending to 2,200, speedbird 761S.
Over to the 456 Airbus P3D information, Bravo, leave 130, descending 110.
Gear down.
456, leave Lambo heading 275 degrees, speed 250 knots. Leave Lambo heading 275, speed 250, to the 456.
Speedbird 761, turn left heading 300.
Left turn to heading 300, speedbird 761S.
That's 20. It's 25.
Lufthansa 4554,
That's
Lufthansa 80. Lufthansa 4554, okay. Stephen 985, D7090. So 05 Mike Alpha, EF27 line up runway 27. For the landing EF27 line up 05 Mike. Outback 761, just want to head to land and want to depart before you. Accepted. Security 22, hold position. Traffic 630, vacate right taxi to Victor. Trap 250, contact Manchester 124.2. Manchester 124.2,
Tower, speedbird 761S, on final, runway 30.
Speedbird 761S, clear to land runway 30. Slow to final approach speed, QNH 1017.
Clear to land runway 30, final approach speed, speedbird 761S.
You notice that ProATC handles missed approaches quite nicely now, putting you back on a good vector for the final approach again.
Hello, Gemstone 4 Mike, wide right and down with 237.
Gemstone 4 Mike, tag, good evening, report final number 1.
Report final, Gemstone 4 Mike.
United 929, clear takeoff 27 right, 7 bend 230 13 knots.
Clear for takeoff, 27 right, United 929.
United 984 Golf, onto United 747, depart line up to 7 right.
984 Golf off the United 747.
Unit 4185, expect to take off 27 left, establish wind at speed 40 degrees 12. Level 8, decrease, stay on the right, now pick up 70, jump to fast line up 27 left.
Terrain. 100.
Tax 474, line up and wait, runway 27.
50.
Bottom 125, 454.
30. 20. 10.
Gate is right. Contact block on 122.7.
122.7, speedbird 761S.
EZ639, taxi uniform, occupant Alpha 2.
Uniform Alpha 2, runway 27, thank you, EZ639.
Okay, all you need to do now is clean up the aircraft, flaps 0,
Postcode 409, vacate next right, and the from the Victor.
speed brakes down, all your landing lights off, and that ends this lesson. Taxi light switch is next to the, well, it's actually on the British Airways, it's the runway turn off lights that you use as your taxi lights. There's no separate taxi light on the British Airways 747. Okay guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope it helps. See you for the next flight. Bye for now.